What's happening, guys? So, finally, I'm getting to it. You know, you've been requesting it. You want my thoughts and opinion, review, and all that fun stuff of Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition. Of course, available on Blu-ray and DVD and Collector's Edition, all that fun stuff. You can call it the Extended Cut, the Ultimate Edition, whatever, you know, floats your boat. I'm joined here with my good friend, Jonathan Kincaid. How's it going, Jonathan?
It is going good. Hello, people.
We're going to be talking spoiler-wise, and we're going to be just going into it. We're going to give our honest thoughts and opinion. We're going to discuss this. We're going to, you know, give you guys thoughts about everything we liked, didn't like. I mean, there's a lot like not to dislike in the movie, but in general, our thoughts about everything and what the movie sets up, how the movie does everything, and all that and forth. First and foremost, I got to get this fucking out of the way. Fuck the theatrical cut and fuck Warner Brothers for not sticking with director Zack Snyder's vision, because this right here, ladies and gentlemen, the Ultimate Edition, is proof that Zack Snyder is a genius. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love the theatrical cut because I understood the vision. Now, what about you, Jonathan? How much do you hate the theatrical cut thanks to the Ultimate Edition?
Well, it's not that I necessarily hate it. It's just the fact, as you mentioned, a lot of essential things were cut out. By Warner Bros., the studio. And when you watch the Ultimate Edition, you're just sitting there like, wow, how could have this been cut out? Something so essential to the story, to the plot.
Yes.
It makes you wonder, but thinking back on the theatrical cut now, it's
kind of sad because it's so interesting because when you watch the Ultimate Edition, the 2-hour, 55-minute version, you get to see for example, you get to see Lex Luthor's plan completely play out from start to finish. You see the genius mastermind that Lex Luthor is. And people, by the way, people that say that Jesse Eisenberg is a back Lex Luthor, y'all motherfuckers are stupid. Okay?
And you know,
just go ahead, Jonathan.
The thing I really liked about Lex Luthor in this movie, and especially in the Ultimate Edition, was the fact that, you know, on the surface he may seem very harmless and quirky, but deep down he's a mastermind. He's a genius.
And he's
psychotic. In the Ultimate Edition, you really get to see how he orchestrates and manipulates people.
And not just that,
I love that.
The African lady, right? He had her murdered just because she was willing to talk about the truth. You know, he's the one that set it up. And here's the thing. I love the way that he figures out that Batman is Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent is Superman, right? He knows how to pull the strings. He figured it all out. You know?
He's just a puppet master the whole time.
And I hate when people tell me, oh, Lex Luthor was pointless in the movie. Are you fucking serious?
Without Lex Luthor, there is no movie.
Literally, like, there is no movie. Like, he is the person that makes them fight, that makes them question their moralities.
Puppet master.
And we can go on. And here's the thing. I love Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I really do. I think you couldn't have cast a better man to do this because he literally, and at the end, you remember when he was like in the cage with Batman, he started to become literally crazy and literally psychotic because of what he saw, you know, from the ship and what he knows is coming. He knows that Darkseid is coming, you know. So let me ask you the following question. Now, a lot of people don't read comic books, and a lot of casual fans didn't understand who was he talking about. Let me ask you this. Do you think they could have done a better job of explaining it, or do you think it was just a proper tease? Give me your thoughts on that, about Darkseid.
You know, there is a lot of references and nods to Darkseid in the film, obviously. You know, I think if you're really deep into the comic book literature of it, then you're going to pick up to those little nods and references. But I think it could have been probably for the more casual fans who really don't realize what the fuck is going on. Excuse my language, but I think probably it could have been explained a little bit better. Okay. But other than that, I mean, if you're a fan of it, then you're gonna know immediately what he's talking about.
You know, I mean, Zack Snyder is a fanboy and a geek of DC Comics, so he made the film for DC geeks. You know, so
I mean, if you're a casual, I really don't know what you're doing seeing this movie.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to be like really into DC.
At least the minimum, like
to truly enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. At least you have to like watch the animated films or like freaking read some form of literature because again, like Zack Snyder, and he even sells, this is sometimes his fault. He is very, like, he doesn't care if you don't know. He is making it for the people that do know, that appreciate this, that appreciate the actual literature and source material, just like him.
It's a movie made by a nerd for nerds, and
exactly.
I mean, he's not gonna pause and try to explain something because you're not into it. If
exactly.
You don't know it, then you're not,
And that's what separates the actual fans from the casual people. You can immediately tell, like you can
critics.
Exactly, like you can immediately tell. But I want to dive into a little bit more. We covered that kind of. I want to dive into. We're going to dive into every character specifically, or most of the characters.
Okay.
But I really want to dive into Bruce Wayne at first. Now, I have said this millions of times. The opening to Batman v Superman is arguably the best opening credits I have ever seen. Like, Watchmen stands very close to that. All right, but The Beautiful Lie and the murder of the Waynes, the way the Zack Snyder, not a single word but Martha was said in that entire scene. Yet you understand the pain and suffering and how Bruce Wayne felt inside and how he fell down. Yes, there's a lot of symbolism. I understand that sometimes it goes over people's heads, but tell me your honest opinion about The Beautiful Lie and about the opening of BVS going into the bats, raising him up into the light.
Okay. I saw BVS, the theatrical version, in theaters about 4 times.
Same here.
And every time I saw the opening, I would always find myself humming the opening soundtrack, Beautiful Lie. And it's a very hauntingly beautiful opening. And the thing that amazes me, and you took my words, is is such, we've seen the Wayne murders
so many times,
it's been shoved down our throats, but this particular interpretation of it was very, very distinct and different, mainly because nothing was really said. He didn't have to rely on words or drama, he didn't have to make it really dramatic. All that was said was Martha.
And what was so beautiful, if you remember in the very beginning, Bruce Wayne says, there was a time above, time of perfect things, diamond, absolutes, but things fall, things on earth, and what falls is fallen. Now, during that scene, and here's the thing, this is what Zack Snyder does best, the way he paints the panel, okay, it shows Wayne Manor, gorgeous, this fall day, leaves falling down, man, Bruce running through the woods, like that, no one can do it like Zack. No one can do it like Zack Snyder. That panel, and yes, I'm referring to like a comic panel because that is a panel, is just genius. And the way you see the Wayne murders, the way that Bruce Wayne falls down slowly, and the way that, like the jewels rip because of the gunshot, and the look on Martha's face when she knows she's going to die and leave her son alone. It's just genius. And as we said, not a single word was needed. That's what Zack Snyder does best. He doesn't need a word to be spoken. Okay? And that's the opening credits.
Yep. And I remember right after BVS came out, and a lot of people were giving Zack Snyder, some shit. And I was just thinking, well, who else better are you going to get to do these movies? Zack Snyder is by far the most qualified, not to mention the fact that Jeff Johns is a glowing endorser of him.
Yep. And so is Christopher Nolan, by the way, people.
You can't get any better. If John likes you, you can't get better than that.
Exactly. If Christopher Nolan says that you're one of the best filmmakers today in Hollywood, then
and you can't necessarily hold Zack Snyder responsible for what the studio did and how the studio impeded his vision.
And another thing I want to talk to you about, when Bruce was taken by the bats, obviously he was lifted up. It was a metaphorical reference that they took him to the light. It was a beautiful lie, that they gave him a reason. That the bats made him understand what he must become in order to move on from this tragedy. My question to you is, when Bruce Wayne fell down again in Metropolis into that hole and didn't come back up, a lot of people didn't understand that. And I understand why, because it doesn't have words in it. It's a metaphor. It's a reason for you to understand on your own and to be a part of Bruce Wayne's story. Now, tell me the following. During scene, obviously we see the human perspective of this Black Zero event in Metropolis. We see the human perspective. But my question to you in the Ultimate Edition, what was so cool and so interesting to me, is that they showed, like in that Wayne Enterprise building, there was a daycare. Right. A daycare for children of the people working. Right. And they walked out like in 9/11. And most of those kids are orphaned.
Yeah.
Orphaned.
See, that's another thing I really liked about this movie is it took where Man of Steel left off, but it puts you in perspective of someone on the ground witnessing that.
A human.
And yeah, and when you saw that in the Ultimate Edition, the children walking out, it was something so simple, but it was so heartfelt and tragic because you knew the consequences of what just happened.
Yep.
You knew those kids were without parents.
Yep.
Possibly.
And Bruce Wayne had to live with that.
Yeah, and Bruce Wayne realized, the feeling of powerlessness.
And what's so beautiful when Bruce looks up into the sky and he sees Zod and Man of Steel fighting. In that moment, he understands he is just a man. He can't fight this. He can't stop this.
You know what I found interesting is something I picked up on the movie is the fact that he runs towards the collapsing building.
Of course.
As though he can do something about it, as though he has the power to stop it.
Well, for 19 years, he's been whooping ass in Gotham, so...
Yeah, you have to understand, all those years in Gotham fighting common street thugs and this and that, it doesn't compare to a god.
And we're going to talk about a moment that Zack did later on in the Doomsday battle that made you understand how Batman's feeling, but we'll get to that eventually. Let's continue on. People say that this movie was too dark. You know what I have to say to that? It's a fucking Batman story, people. It's a fucking Batman story. And second of all, I'm going to quote Jor-El. In Man of Steel, he said, "You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you, and they will stumble, and they will fall." In Batman v Superman, humanity stumbles and falls under the impression of a godlike messiah in our time, okay? It took his death for us to realize his sacrifice, and for us to realize what we just lost, okay? Now I want to ask you something. Did you like the way that the world was shown and progressed when not just to the world progression, but especially when it came to the Man of Steel and Superman?
I said this many times before. The world itself in BVS, I consider to be a character.
Yes.
Because the movie does a very good job at making you feel.
Yes.
What normal people feel and what they're what they think and how they're reacting to what happened in Metropolis. It's a very uncertain and fearful world because people don't know really who Superman is
and what he wants to do.
And it's a scary thought when you think about it because me and you would be among that. Those people.
I want to mention something. If you remember, there was a scene when CNN was talking about him. He has these images of him doing stuff. There was a moment where there was a huge tsunami or flood, and they didn't put help on the roof. They put his symbol. And when Superman was above her, she reached out to him because he represents hope.
Yep.
That symbol, Jor-El said it, that's what you can bring them, Cal. Hope, an absolute ideal that every person can be a force of good.
And, it's a very interesting thing because not everyone is necessarily against Superman. I mean, when he goes to the Capitol, you see there's people with signs that actually support him.
And signs that actually don't want him, yes.
Yeah, and it's those two conflicting beliefs and convictions that I think that makes it so interesting. And to see people who think that everything's his fault, just his mere presence is what caused the destruction of Metropolis, and that he needs to be dealt with. I think it's those clashing ideas,
morals, and ideas. I want to ask you something. This is what I loved about the Ultimate Edition. Clark Kent, not Superman. Clark Kent. What I want to talk to you about, first and foremost, we'll get to everything else, but first and foremost, I loved the phone conversation when he called his mom in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And he simply asked,
and
he said, "Hi." It was just a son, not a god, not a superhero, a son, talking to his mother. And he said, "Why didn't Dad ever leave Kansas?" He just wanted to understand. And those type of moments, that's one of those things. Why did I get cut? What do you think of that? What do you think of that moment and just the moment with, Martha and everything?
I thought it was a very heartfelt and touching moment because, as you said, it was simple in itself. It was just a son calling his mother.
Yep.
And, we didn't see too much of that in the theatrical cut. But I just want to add in something else I really enjoyed.
Yes.
about the Ultimate Edition, and that's the fact that we see more of Clark actually investigating the Bat of Gotham.
And he didn't fly to Gotham. He took a ferry, like.
Yeah, you know, he good. He don't gotta do all
He
that.
was just because he wasn't Superman. He was Clark Kent.
Yeah, and you know, I really like that because you got to see, you know, you remember the one guy, you know, he was like he's on a hunt. You got to see how people were.
Yeah, and there's a new hatred to him. You know, there's a new type of, you know.
I just liked it. I thought it was brilliant because you got to see how the residents of Gotham.
Yeah, how not the rich residents of Gotham, how the street level, just you know, the day-to-day folk react to him.
I thought that was brilliant.
There's a new mean in him.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's showing in that warehouse.
Another thing I really want to talk to you about is the brand. You know how Batman brands people. They actually showed what I mean, and again, this. By the way, let me cut myself off. Batman v Superman, in my opinion, is not a kids movie. It's not.
Oh, absolutely.
It is not. I do not want any child under the age of 13 even looking at it. You know, it is not a movie that is meant for kids. And back to the branding, you actually see what the inmates do to those people. You know, not because Batman made them, but because what that symbol represents. That means you're a rapist.
I thought it was really excellent because, you know, and the you know, the lady was even like, you know, who is he to be the judge, jury, and executioner? That's not his right.
Yeah, and words don't stop that kind of man. A fist does, you know.
Yeah, and you know, to see what actually happens when that brand is on, to see what that means and what that, you know, in stores for you. I mean, it was crazy seeing that.
You know, and it's so interesting because it didn't happen in Gotham. They transferred him to Metropolis.
Yeah.
You know, and even hear the officer go like, "You should be thankful that the taxpayers of Metropolis even gave your ass a home."
And you know what kind of freaked me out is that the fact that branding was so common that it was just common nature. Like, you know, if you got that, you know, you're a marked man, and you would be pretty much dead.
And that's the thing, Batman didn't want to kill you yourself. He wanted you to feel the fear of knowing that you're going to die for what you did. You're going to be destroyed in that prison, not by me, but by people who are in there with you. You know? And that's the fear that Batman wanted to put on people. And now I want to get to Alfred. He goes, new rules. He was like, we've criminals, Alfred. We've always been criminals. Nothing's changed. But he said, no. Everything's changed. That's where my favorite quote of the movie comes. That's how it starts. The fever, the rage, the feeling of powerlessness that turns good men not evil, but cruel.
Yep, and that's, you know, that whole quote that Alfred said, that's depicted, you know, throughout the entire movie of Batman and his, you know,
his new ways,
ruthless tactics and methods, and how he's just in this hopeless, dark abyss where, you know,
and I think that a lot of that has to do with, again, we know that something happened. Well, obviously Jason was killed.
Yep.
You know, obviously something happened to Wayne Manor, and then on top of that, the Black Zero event. And you have to understand, yes, he's Batman, but there's oh so much a man can take.
Yeah, and you know, see, the thing that I really liked is, you know, and this is kind of skipping ahead to the whole Martha moment.
Well, hold that thought, actually, because we're going to get there. I want to talk to you. This is, if you remember, I don't know if you remember the Dark Knight Returns animated film, but even in the book,
of course.
There was a moment where Bruce Wayne stared into the darkness. And he said that, you know, like Batman was like his inner conscience was talking to him, like, you can't live without me. You know, you need me. And there was a moment, again, no words, of Bruce opening the suit and just looking at it into the darkness. Into that pit, into the abyss, and the music, the dun 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 by Hans Zimmer. Again, no words, but he stared into the darkness. What did you think of that scene?
I thought that scene. First of all, the shit gave me chills. But you know, it was pretty much Bruce Wayne looking in the mirror at himself is what it was, and what you know, certain events turned him into and made him be.
See, a lot of people also thought that ha ha ha, joke's on you, Robin suit was there as an Easter egg. I don't think it was just an Easter egg. I think it showed when he looked at it, it's a reminder. It's a reminder of what has happened. And another one of my favorite.
And all of that, what, like you were saying, what happened in Metropolis, the death of Jason Todd, it all contributes to why Batman is the way he is. Why he's pretty much lost his way.
Exactly, and another quote that I really enjoy is like, "We know what promises are worth, Alfred. We've been 20 years in Gotham. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way? He's lost everything. Friends, people he can trust, people that he cared and loved about, Because remember, his soldier, his fault. You know what I mean? So,
greatest failure.
It's Batman's greatest failure because he couldn't prevent the death of someone that not just a Robin, he cared for Jason. So
obviously, yeah.
And again, the fact that suit is in there just shows that he reminds himself every day of what happened. But I want to continue on a little bit. What did you think of the relation between Alfred and Bruce Wayne throughout the film?
The thing that I have to say about Alfred in this movie is he was just spot on, excellent. I mean, he had that charm about him that
maybe some Metropolis girl can make you honest in your wish, Alfred.
He was great. But the dynamic, between him and Bruce, I really liked. Especially in the Ultimate Edition, he was like, "So falls the House of Wayne." It's Alfred finally coming to terms with there's no swaying him. He's gonna do what he does, and he's gonna continue to walk on this path.
Exactly. I also, I want to continue on saying, this is what I loved about the Ultimate Edition. I like how Zack also focused on Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
With Bruce Wayne going to, the underground fight club and getting the research and going to Lex Luthor's home and, and finding Diana at, at the museum and all that. We'll get to Wonder Woman in a second. And doing all that stuff. I thought that was really cool. Now, I want to touch upon this. Now, the nightmare sequences. Okay? Now, I'm going to give my honest opinion on it. Yeah. I personally think that when Flash traveled back in time, to warn Bruce, to fear him, obviously talking about Darkseid, that he was always right about him, that he was coming. My question is, why did he say Lois Lane is the key? Okay, why is she the key to everything? More importantly, I think that the nightmare sequence is a rip in the space-time continuum that allows Bruce to see into the future. And I think that's the Injustice timeline. And I think that timeline is now not going to happen because of Bruce understanding what's coming. Bringing the Justice League together before it's too late. Do you agree with me on that?
I do. I think it's very, very plausible.
Because you can definitely tell that he doesn't just see the future. And I think that the Flash traveling back in time is that rip in the space-time continuum. That Bruce is allowed to see into the future. He is allowed to see what is going to become, and that's his fear. Okay? Fear of something, someone. And that's why he's recruiting the Justice League before it's too late. And I think that's going to be explained. I really do. I think that's going to be explained later in the Justice League movies. Do you like the way that, again, like, it's very... Again, if people don't read comics, it's very like, oh, what, he sees the future now? What the heck?
Yeah, if you don't read comics, it's kind of out there and kind of random and abrupt. But if you do, then you can piece it together and, of course, make sense of it. But
did you like the Flash cameo?
Yeah, the thing when I first saw BVS, the great thing about that cameo was it was so out of the blue and unexpected, and
no one knew he was in there.
And when it happened, I was shaking in my fucking seat. I mean, it was just amazing. But man,
I noticed that he had another suit on top of his suit. So this is my question. I have a little theory.
Okay.
I think that somehow, some way, we're gonna get an interaction between that timeline and the current timeline. Somehow, some way, Barry Allen is going to be the brink between that two. Somehow, some way. Because it's going to be explained, people. They're not just going to leave that open. They're going to explain it. They're going to explain for now, it has to be that way because you have to wonder, you have to question. All right? Zack wants you to be like, what the fuck is going on? And then when you get the explanation in Justice League 1 or 2, but they said they will explain it, you'll be like, oh, fuck, that makes so much sense. You know?
Of course it's going to be like that way with BVS. There's going to be a few unanswered questions that are left for speculation because it's the platform for the Justice League and, you know, movies beyond. So, of course it's going to be like that.
Now, let's get to, I want to talk about Lois Lane before we get to Diana. I personally fucking loved Lois in this movie, except for her throwing the spear down. But I understand why she did, because she didn't want Superman to get hurt, but then kind of coming back, doing that. That's the only my only thing is I think that Wonder Woman should have stopped the fight, not Lois. I understand why it was Lois. I get it. I just don't necessarily 110% agree with it. I think that Wonder Woman should have been like, fuck y'all motherfuckers.
But
you know?
At the same time, you can't sit here and say, because it was awesome how Wonder Woman was introduced.
Of course.
You know how she was brought in like that. I mean, her coming in and kind of breaking it up, that would be kind of...
I mean, that would have been badass, though, throwing both of those niggas...
Cool, but I'm just saying, in comparison to that, it wouldn't have been as cool.
Agreed. But as I said, I understand why it was Lois. It made perfect sense for the plot, and all that stuff. And now, let's get back to Wonder Woman. First of all, I love the sexiness of Diana Prince. Not Wonder Woman, of Diana Prince. The awe, the mystery of, and then when Bruce, by the way, I'm gonna cut myself off. The reason that there were logos, okay, on the files, because one, the Flash already exists in the universe and he has a logo, okay, so obviously his file is gonna have a logo. Aquaman, they know about Atlantis, and they know that the Aquaman logo stands for Atlantis, so obviously he's gonna put that logo on his file. Cyborg, he may have just freaking branded him because he's Lex fucking Luthor, and he needs to fucking put some kind of logo on him to fucking know what the fuck that is. The only thing that's interesting to me is the Wonder Woman logo. That I can argue with. But people, the way they were brought in, the way they were showed, you have to understand, it wasn't shoehorned in. That's the way it was done. I think, personally, it should have been Bruce Wayne who saw all that stuff, not Diana, but that's a whole different story. Back to Diana Prince. I love the look on Bruce's face when he sees that photo from 1912. Because he's like, shit! Like, what? Like, what? You know? Let me ask you this. What did you think of Diana Prince as this sexy, kind of mysterious woman?
You know, one of the cool things about her, you know, especially at, you know, Lex's house where the party was going on, is when every time you would see her, that little mysterious music would play. And I really like that. That really added to her character. But she has a charm, a sexiness. And I think the sexiest thing about her, you know, as Diana, is the mystery.
Yep.
You know, she leaves you wondering. You want to know more.
Exactly. It's the wonder.
Yep. But I think I really like those scenes, just like with her. Especially in the museum. Oh,
that was great. That was great. Let me ask you this question. What did you think of the Batman versus Superman fight? Give me your thoughts on that.
Ooh, Jesus.
In the Ultimate Edition, of course, you know, and there was more stuff in the Ultimate Edition too. The punches were heavier. There were a few extra scenes. Woo! It was literally the Dark Knight. Woo! Shit! That shit was clean. That shit was clean.
You know, like you said, man, it was a lot more brutal. Like, you really felt the punches in this, and you know, the fight is, of course, it was unreal.
Yep.
It was beyond brutal and savage, and but for some reason in this, you really felt the shit.
Well, I really liked in the beginning when he like pushed him, and then he slowly came up to him, turned, and then took him through the building. Woo! The way he looked at him too, and then you just see freaking Batman punch the motherfucker. Just. Let me ask you this. We, of course, love the quote of, you know, my parents taught me, you know, lay into the gutters for no reason at all, that the world only makes sense if you force it to. That's great and all that. What did you think? See, when Bruce Wayne realizes what he's becoming, when he realizes that he's going to kill a man right now, literally, because he doesn't understand him, and the only reason Cal is fighting him is that so he can let him understand he's trying to save his mother, but Bruce didn't want to listen. That look on Bruce's face, props to Ben Affleck, him realizing what he could have just become. What were your thoughts on that, and how the movie came into that? What are your thoughts?
It was such a pivotal moment because it was the moment Bruce finally realized he's wrong. He's the bad guy. He's the one at fault. And the sad thing is, Bruce, he was so quick to get into conflict with Superman. He didn't even let Superman explain.
Yeah, he was like, "You don't understand." Oh, I understand.
And that's how consumed by rage and vengeance.
Yep.
And as Alfred said, the feeling of powerlessness. He let it blind him.
Yep. He became cruel.
Judgment. Yeah, and the whole movie, when Batman, and those girls are caged up down there, he wasn't there to free them.
Nope.
He was there to get Leeds.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He was there to help them, but
but his primary purpose there was to get Leeds on Kryptonite to defeat Superman. So it just goes to show Batman is driven by this desire
to kill. Because remember, he said, "This might be the only thing that I do that will matter."
Yep. That's when Alfred was like, he's too far gone, possibly. So falls the House of Wayne.
And you know what I really loved? And it's not that their mother's name were the same. It's that, because remember, the last thing his father said was Martha. And his mother, he realized what he was about to do. He was about to kill a man that was trying to save his mother.
Yep.
And what I love when he said, "Martha won't die tonight. I promise you." That, and you see Superman, he looked at him and he trusted him with that. Now, let's get to the best scene in the movie. "I don't deserve you, Alfred." "No, sir, you don't."
When I saw that, man, I was just like, how and why was that cut?
Seriously.
It was brilliant.
Like, it was like, I took the luxury of setting the navigational system, and he was like, "I don't deserve you, Alfred." "No, sir, you don't."
Oh man, I really loved Alfred. Man, Alfred's just fucking.
That to me, man, till this day when I think about it, I start giggling because it's perfect. It's Bruce after fighting God, about to save someone, and he's just like he's just like, "I don't deserve you, Alfred." Ah, shit. Okay, moving. Let's talk about Lex Luthor a little bit. One of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is when he drops Lois Lane. Superman comes up and he's like, "Boy, do we have some problems up here." He's excited. He's like, "Boy, do we have some problems up here."
One about that particular scene actually is I really liked when Lex was throwing photos.
And now God bows to my will.
Yeah, I really liked when he was throwing the photos down. It really showed, and he was laughing.
Yep.
It was fun. It was fun to him seeing a god.
Yeah, where is she? I don't know. I didn't have to tell me.
And I think that scene in particular does a great job showing just how sadistic he is.
And not just that. I love how it's like, when you got here, you had an hour. Now, you have less. And
it's that whole thing. Now I'm in control.
And here's the thing. I now understand why Clark came to Lois and he's like, "I have to convince him to help me. Or I have to kill him. No man stays good forever." And he didn't have enough time to tell her everything else. He felt he didn't know what to do. He was rushed because the mother, the one woman he truly loves and always was there for him, is going to die. But this man, he doesn't want to kill him, but he is confused and conflicted because if he doesn't, his mother dies. He doesn't have time to find her. He can't convince him. That's the dilemma of Superman.
Yep, and when you think about it, people see Superman as, of course, a symbol of hope. And, a beacon of light. And he's in a position where he's being forced to betray that.
Yes.
Where he's being forced to kill someone.
Yes.
And you think about that and you wonder, just like the conflict that's going through his head.
Agreed. And let's talk about Doomsday a little bit.
Yep.
I want to quote Lex Luthor for one more time. He said, No man in the sky stopped my father's bad hand from laying torture on me. And but the best way he goes, "That's what I understood. If God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, he cannot be all powerful." Another thing is, remember, Doomsday was going to kill Lex with that punch, and Superman stopped him. Even though Lex Luthor was going to murder his mother and endanger the world with this thing, he stopped Doomsday from killing Lex. And that shows you what type of man Superman really is. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the way Doomsday was brought to life. That's a different story. However, I like the fact that it was Zod. I like the fact that it came out of the, from Lex Luthor's blood, the blood of my blood, a huge Kryptonian deformity. Let me ask you this. What did you think of Doomsday originally, and more importantly, the fight between him and Superman leading up to the nuclear explosion?
Finally seeing Lex's, master plan come together, and him really realizing that, having Batman
you want Zod's body? Okay.
Yeah. One thing I gotta say though is, of course, this is more props to Zack Snyder.
Yes.
Visually, the CGI, it gave me like literally goosebumps because he looked real.
Yep.
I mean, you can try to say whatever you want, man, but he looked real.
Especially when he was next to the statue.
Yeah, it was crazy. But as far as the actual fight goes and whatnot, I thought it was, insane. And this goes to Superman's, type of character he is. I think if he would have known that the government was going to nuke, he would have been okay with that.
Yep.
That just goes
that's actually obviously Dark Knight Returns reference with Superman kind of, re-healing with the sun, which I thought, by the way, was genius. The way it was done visually looked incredible. What did you think of how Batman, in his Batwing, was trying to grab the attention of Doomsday? He's like, the spear, Alfred. It's in Metropolis. You can kill it. What do you think of that? Of Batman actually being like, oh, okay, I guess I got to keep its attention.
Batman, I think Batman was like, you know what, guys, this is a little bit beyond me. I'm going to go back to the Batcave and chill. But that whole thing when he's trying to lure him back, and Doomsday fucks his shit up. And he's just like, oh, shit.
Dude, exactly, because then he knew.
For all this shit.
Dude, that when he was like, oh, shit. Batman knew at that point he fucked up.
Yep, and when Superman and Wonder Woman are fighting Doomsday, I really enjoyed how it showed the camera panned back.
There we go. That's what I want to talk about.
Just watching in awe because it was God's.
It literally.
And for the first time ever, it was beyond Batman. It was something he had never dealt with or experienced before, and he's just taken back like we are. I thought that was
my favorite part. Did you find the spear? I was a little busy.
Yeah. Batman's face, he was like, my nigga, really?
You've been, where the fuck were you, my brother? I was trying to keep this shit from destroying the freaking world. Really? You really gonna ask me that?
You'd ask your homegirl why she's just throwing it anywhere.
And my favorite part was I've fought things from out of this world before, and he was like, she with you? And Batman looked at him and was like, I thought she was with you. Because Batman was like, I thought she's a god like you, bitch. I thought you guys knew each other. Let's get back to that fight. What's my favorite panel? And again, Zack Snyder can only do this. Is when Superman is shooting his heat vision at Doomsday, and Doomsday is shooting his laser, and it just pans around, and the music, and the way it looks.
That's something I also have to give major props and credit for in this movie. Of course, Hans Zimmer. He's an absolute genius composer, and the soundtrack in this movie is stellar.
Oh my god.
It is just stellar. It blends so well and just adds to the epicness.
When they're fighting, it's just it's so good. And another thing is, one of my favorite scenes is the look on Batman's face when Doomsday's about to whoop his ass.
Oh yeah, he's like, not today.
He was legitimately scared.
Bro, he was out with the swiftness. He was like, no, I don't want
bro, every time I see that scene, it gets me because he legitimately was scared. He was like, oh my god.
I would be scared too.
Another thing is, remember that time where Wonder Woman jumped up super high with the freaking sword?
Yes.
Bro. And then the way she looked at Doomsday when he threw her, and she was like, "Oh, okay." It's compensating exactly, because she hasn't had a challenge for a while. Let's bring it a little bit together.
That's another thing I want to touch upon briefly is the fact that she was actually enjoying that.
Yeah.
Because it was in her nature. It was a battle.
Before I get to the very end, I want to take a moment backtrack a little bit. You know, we're talking about, again, it's a little bit over the place, but we're talking a little bit.
Yeah.
I love how in the Capitol, when the explosion happened, how they actually show Superman helping. Not just flying away.
That's another thing I really appreciate about the Autumn Edition was it took the time to show you the aftermath
and the bodies, the dead amount of dead people.
It showed you that loss.
Granny's peach tea. Let me ask you this, my friend. Let me ask you this. A lot of people, and I like how, you know, they have an extra scene of, you know, why is he going up there? You know, men go to die up there. Remember when Clark was going to, you know, to the mountains? A lot of people don't understand this. Excuse me. And I've talked to you about this multiple times.
Yep.
Notice that there is no civilization for hundreds and hundreds of miles. He is up there alone because he can be with his thoughts. He is an alien. We do not understand him. Okay?
You know, to chime in real quick here,
yes,
and to add what you're saying.
Yes, go ahead.
The whole world is so, you know, concerned about Superman and what he stands for and what he represents
and what he should do.
You know, and in summary, and exactly what he should be doing. You know, and when you're Clark Kent, I mean, you need to get away from that. You need to be alone. You need to have just you, nothing else. And you know, it's just I thought it was perfect because it was really done well to see him, you know, be the center of attention all the time.
And then just with himself.
Everyone else not to know it as Clark Kent, and to just take that break, you know, to disconnect.
And people say, why did he have a, you know, vision with his father? Because that's the one person he always relied on. That's the one. And remember, he's like, I miss you, son. And he just looks up, I miss you too, Dad. You know,
and that's
it's beautiful. It is beautiful. And here's the thing. This is what I love. Now going back to the end. When Cal looks at Lewis and he goes, "This is my world. You are my world." And then you see the look on Lewis. She knows what he is about to do. And Cal was willing to sacrifice himself for the better of this world, because this world is now his and is under his protection.
I thought the beautiful thing at that moment was the fact that Lewis knew the kind of man he was. And it's sad because she had to accept so quickly that that's the kind of man he was, that he would sacrifice himself so that others can live. Cool.
So, you know, as you said, you know, she realized the type of man he was, that he was willing to sacrifice. And again, the Trinity, all of the Trinity had a point to play in that fight. Wonder Woman was holding the lasso. He shot, you know, he shot the cartridge. And what I loved was the music. And this is a fun reference. Zod killed Jor-El with a spear. Then Doomsday from Zod's body killed Superman. And notice this. When he shoved that spear through Superman, Superman hasn't still killed him. He shoved it even deeper to get closer to him.
You know, I just want to touch back on what you just said about how the Trinity all had to play. Seeing that excites me so much for Justice League. Teamwork, working together. I mean, that's just a sneak peek.
Yes. And here's the thing, bro. This is also another thing I want to touch on the very end of the battle.
Okay.
How Batman hands Wonder Woman Superman, and how they just all stand there, and you, no words again, no words, and you see Lewis crying and holding him, and you see Wonder Woman putting her head down, and Batman just standing there, and you see the picture of the realization of a God sacrificing himself for us.
You know, I thought one of the most tragic things about that was the fact that, you know, it was you have to remember, it was a relationship between Lewis and Clark.
They loved each other.
And now it's no more.
Yep.
And she, don't get me wrong, she understands that because she understands the kind of person he is, and that he's more than willing to sacrifice himself so that others can live.
Remember, she said, "I don't know if you can be you and love me."
Exactly.
you know, and it is just, man, like, and then at the very end, you know, he obviously, you know, he wanted to propose to her, you know, he wanted to marry her, and that was even more heartbreaking. And you know what was more heartbreaking? Martha standing there with his grave, and she's now lost everything. She has lost her husband, and now she's lost what she didn't. Remember, she said that I never wanted this world to have you, you know, because they don't deserve you, you know.
And she made a perfect point. You don't own this world a thing.
A goddamn thing. Be their angel, Clark. Be their savior. Be their monument. Or be none of it. Or be none of it. You know, and then at the very end, first of all, the music. Oh my God! And I loved what Bruce Wayne said. He goes, or what Diana said. They're burying an empty coffin, you know, over there. And she goes, they don't know how to bury him any other way but than a soldier. And then you see, dude, and I don't know if you noticed this, but the people that were on the protest near the White House were there on his funeral in the Capitol. Why? Because they realized.
You know, it's amazing, and you touched upon this, but it takes that kind of monumental sacrifice for people to truly understand the kind of, not even God, but person. You know, because at the end of the day, he was willing to sacrifice himself.
Yep. And here's the thing.
And it took that.
One of the best moments in that movie, and there's multiple meanings to it. If you're looking for his monument, look around you. Now, one of that being is that all the people there with candles. All the people. Another is the destruction.
Yeah.
You know, so there's two meanings of that. Yes, there's death, and yes, there is destruction, and yes, there's bad. But look at everything else. He saved us.
It's those two beliefs. You know, people say he's good, people say he's bad.
Exactly.
And it's all a matter of how. I love it because it leaves it up to you.
Yep.
How you want to interpret it.
Exactly.
But I love how that was done.
And at the very end, I didn't realize this at the first watching of Batman and Superman. I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death.
Yeah, and that's because
Bruce realized
throughout the entire
he refound that light.
And you know, throughout the entire movie, Batman was beyond toxic. Bruce was beyond toxic. He was he was far gone. And it took Superman to give him something more to aspire to.
Exactly.
To become better and to be better. You know.
And that's the beautiful of it, like, and the fact that critics and people just say that, I'm just like, do you watch the fucking movie?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because just like with everybody else, how it took that sacrifice for them to realize, it took, you know, that sacrifice with Batman for, you know, Bruce, for him to realize. So, you know,
it was just, and the way it's done, and I don't know, man. Zack Snyder, and again, obviously at the end you see, you know, the ground rise up, and obviously he's not dead. He just needs the sunlight, and, you know, to more of that stuff.
Obviously.
All I have to say, man, is that this film, man, it's such a beautiful piece of art.
You know, if you, I'll just say this: if you had any, you know, real gripe with the theatrical cut,
there is no gripe with the Ultimate Edition.
Then you need to sit your ass down, get some popcorn, get comfy in the lazy boy chair, and you need to watch the Ultimate Edition because it literally corrects and addresses everything that was wrong with the theatrical cut.
And not just that, it
makes it so much more better. I mean, it really does.
The idea of the film and the idea Zack has, and this pisses me off because I understand filmmaking that is thought out, provoking, suspenseful, that has story, that has enough action to keep you entertained. This movie, it's the pinnacle of comic book filmmaking. It's something that you can relate to, you can understand, and there's so much into it, yet the 3 hours fly like that.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
You know, like, there's not a single moment in the movie like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, no, it doesn't drag on. It has a very progressive, natural flow to it.
And narrative, you know? Like,
and I mean, just everything about it, you know, it was amazing. I can't believe how different the Ultimate Edition, because it made it feel like a completely different movie.
Well, it's the full vision of Zack Snyder.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, I said this, you know, earlier on, but Zack Snyder, what Warner Bros. Did, how they, cut
Yes.
cut a lot of stuff out. It wasn't right, and I don't think it's fair that he took a lot of the blame for that. But he don't care.
Exactly.
Because he knew what his vision was, and he knew the kind of story he was
More
trying
importantly,
to tell.
the right people knew it too.
Yeah, exactly.
As you said in the beginning, Jeff Johns is one of the biggest Zack Snyder fans out there. So.
And he's just sitting back, smiling,
Mm-hmm.
laughing now because that vision is out there with the Ultimate Edition.
But what I also love about Zack Snyder is that he heard the fans. He heard them.
Yep.
He said, but here's the thing. Justice League, we even knew this, and we talked about this back when the movie came out in theatrical. We knew it was going to be more lighthearted because of Barry and because of the interactions with all the characters and all that. And then you see the Justice League trailer. Of course, this is going off topic, but you see the type of filmmaker Zack is. He's still going to fulfill his vision, but he heard everyone. Mm-hmm. He heard all the people that wanted a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun. He gets that. He gets that.
And that works perfectly because it's the Justice League, and it's not like he's just changing the tone.
Exactly.
Of the movie. It's the Justice League.
And yes, he said that there are certain things that he changed the way he's going to, add a few things, but at its core, it's still the movie he wants to make.
Yeah, and it's just, it doesn't seem like it was changed for the sake of changing it just for the fans. It's there because it's the Justice League. It's gonna be like that, You have Barry. I mean, come on, Barry Allen. In his second favorite chair.
He's like, stop right there. I'm in. And but with that being said, guys, I really enjoyed reviewing this and giving my thoughts on it. I would like to thank Jonathan for joining me here and giving your thoughts. Give us your thoughts in the comment section below. Let us know what you guys thought about it. I know this was an hour-long video, but I personally don't care because I can talk about this movie and watch this movie so freaking much because, again, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a piece of art that will never be done again. This is Zack Snyder's best film, and that's saying a lot because I fucking love The Watchmen. Okay, I fucking love that movie from start to finish to death. But this right here, I'm telling you guys, this is beyond filmmaking. Zack Snyder, this is a movie I'm going to quote Christopher Nolan. Just like The Watchmen, this is a movie decades above its time. Decades.
And if you haven't seen the Ultimate Edition, you have no business being at this video.
Exactly.
So go and watch it.
As my boy Jonathan said, kick back, relax, get comfy in that lazy boy chair, and seriously, it will fly by. But with that being said, guys, we're going to be peacing out. Have a good day, and peace out, guys.